Have you ever felt someone want you deeply at the start, touch you like they could not get enough, look at you like you were the missing piece, and then, little by little, go distant the moment the bond became real? One day the chemistry feels wild, easy, alive. The next, something shifts. The kisses slow down, the warmth changes. The sex that once felt natural starts feeling rare, forced, or strangely empty. And you sit there asking the question that hurts the most. What changed? Was it me? Did I do too much? Did I love too openly? If you have lived this, stay with me, because what looks confusing on the outside often has a very clear pattern underneath it. And once you see that pattern, you stop blaming your body, your worth, your love, and your heart for someone else's fear. What you are about to hear may explain a dynamic that destroys closeness in silence. Not because there was never real desire, but because real desire started turning into real intimacy. And for some people, that is where the danger begins. And what comes next is the part most people never get told until they are already deeply hurt. Let's make one thing clear right away. A partner with avoidant patterns is not always cold, cruel, or trying to punish you. A lot of the time, they are reacting from old emotional wiring that formed long before they met you. Many of them learned early that needing love was risky, that opening up led to shame, disappointment, or rejection, and that depending on anyone could end in pain. So they built a life around self-protection. They became highly independent. They learned to keep control. They taught themselves to need less, show less, and feel less on the surface, even if deep down they wanted love like anyone else. That is why the beginning of a relationship can feel so powerful with them. In the early stage, there is attraction without too much pressure, closeness without too much exposure, chemistry without too much responsibility. It feels exciting because it still leaves room to escape. But when the bond starts getting serious, when feelings deepen, when emotional truth asks them to show more of themselves, that is often when fear wakes up. They may not even say it out loud. They may not understand it themselves, but the body knows, the nervous system knows, and that silent alarm can start shutting down the very connection they were once so drawn to. One of the first places this shift often shows up is in sex. Not always because attraction is gone, not always because desire fully disappeared, but because sex inside a deep relationship is not just physical. It becomes emotional. It becomes revealing. It becomes a place where you are seen, felt, received, and known. For someone who links vulnerability with danger, that can feel overwhelming fast. Sex is no longer just excitement. It starts carrying closeness. It carries tenderness. It carries emotional exposure. And that is where their system begins to resist. They may still care about you. They may still think you are beautiful. They may still enjoy being near you. But the deeper meaning inside intimacy starts pressing on the exact place they try to protect. So they pull back, sometimes subtly, sometimes sharply, sometimes without words. They get distracted. They say they are tired. They say work is stressful. They avoid affectionate moments that could naturally lead to closeness. They stay around, but not fully in it. And if you are the partner on the receiving end, it can feel brutal, because what disappeared was not just sex. It was the feeling of being welcomed, of being chosen with openness, of being met without resistance. That is why this hurts so much. It reaches right into your self-worth if you do not understand what is really happening. This is also why so many people describe the pattern as hot and cold. At first, it is hot, very hot. The avoidant partner may pursue hard, text often, flirt intensely, initiate affection, and create a level of chemistry that feels unforgettable. They can seem deeply interested, deeply turned on, even emotionally present in a way that makes you believe this is finally something real. Then closeness grows. Expectations become natural. The bond starts asking for steadiness, honesty, and emotional availability. That is often when the cold phase begins. Not always with a dramatic exit. More often with a slow retreat that keeps you confused. They stop reaching as much. They seem flatter. Compliments get fewer. Touch feels lighter, almost absent. They may still say they care, but their energy says something else. And this matters because mixed signals can keep a person emotionally trapped for months or even years. You keep remembering the beginning. You keep waiting for that version of them to return. You keep thinking if you just say it better, love them better, pressure them less, need less, ask for less, then maybe the warmth will come back. But the deeper truth is painful. The warmth often fades not because you did something wrong, but because the relationship started becoming emotionally real, and that reality activated their defense instead of their openness. Inside that defense, there is often a private conflict they rarely explain well. Many people with avoidant behavior do want love. They want connection. They want to feel chosen. They want closeness, touch, desire, and loyalty. But when those things actually arrive in a deep form, their system does not always read it as safe. It reads it as pressure. It reads it as loss of control. It reads it as the beginning of being emotionally trapped. So a strange split happens inside them. One part longs for intimacy, another part fights it. That inner fight creates what some people call a shutting down pattern. They start mentally creating distance so they do not feel the full weight of attachment. They notice your flaws more. They become more irritated by normal needs. They tell themselves the spark is gone. They focus on what feels wrong instead of what feels good. They may decide the relationship is moving too fast even when it is moving at a healthy pace. They may suddenly act like your need for affection is too much when weeks before, they were the one moving closer. If this has ever made you feel like you were losing your mind, pause here and breathe, because the confusion is part of the pattern. It is not always a clean rejection. It is often a quiet, protective, internal retreat happening right in front of you while they still say everything is fine. There is another part of this that people do not talk about enough. For many avoidant partners, sex can feel easier when there is emotional distance. That is why some of them can be highly passionate in casual situations, highly expressive in the beginning, or deeply sexual when the relationship still feels loose and undefined, but then go flat once commitment and emotional closeness enter the room. It sounds backward, but to them, distance can feel safer than closeness. In distance, there is less risk of being known too deeply, less risk of feeling responsible for someone's heart, less risk of losing themselves in another person's emotional world. So when sex stays mostly physical, it can feel exciting and manageable. But when sex begins to carry tenderness, trust, and emotional union, fear can rise underneath the surface. They may not say, "I am scared of how close this feels." Instead, they may just seem less interested, less available, less alive. And you may take that silence personally, because silence always invites the worst stories. Stay with me, because this next piece matters. Emotional safety, the very thing secure love needs to grow, can feel unsafe to someone who never learned how to receive it. That is the twist. And once you understand that, so many confusing moments suddenly start making sense. As the relationship deepens, intimacy can start feeling like obligation to them. This is where many partners get hurt the most. What feels natural to you can feel heavy to them. A good morning text, a need for reassurance. Wanting more time together, wanting closeness after conflict, wanting sex that is not just physical but connected. These things may seem normal, even healthy, but an avoidant partner may begin to feel them as demands, even when you are expressing them calmly. Somewhere inside, they start telling themselves, if I keep showing up like this, I will disappear. If I keep connecting, I will lose freedom. If I keep opening, I will lose control. And instead of saying that honestly, they often withdraw. They become less affectionate, less emotionally present, less sexual, less responsive. Then the other partner feels rejected and naturally reaches more, asks more, tries harder, and the avoidant partner feels even more pressure. That creates the painful chase and retreat cycle so many couples get stuck in. One person moves closer to repair the bond, the other steps back to regulate fear. Then both people feel unseen, both people feel misunderstood, one feels abandoned, the other feels crowded. And unless both people understand the cycle, they will keep hurting each other while believing they are only reacting to the other person. If you are the one on the receiving end of this, I need to say something clearly. Their withdrawal is not proof that you are unattractive. It is not proof that you are boring, too emotional, too needy, too available, or somehow not enough. In fact, the painful truth is often the opposite. The more sincere you are, the more emotionally open you are, the more ready you are for real closeness, the more their fear can get triggered. Because what you are offering is not shallow attention. It is real intimacy. It is consistency. It is care with depth. And that can shake a person who has never learned how to feel safe inside mutual love. So, yes, they may feel pulled toward you and scared of you at the same time. They may want your warmth and also want distance from what your warmth awakens in them. That contradiction is real. But listen carefully here, because this part can save you years of pain. Their fear is real, but your pain is real too. Their struggle deserves understanding, but your needs also deserve respect. Compassion should never require self-erasure. Understanding someone's wounds should never force you to live starving for affection, starving for honesty, starving for touch, and calling it patience. That is not healthy love. That is survival inside uncertainty. So, what can you actually do if you are with someone like this and sex and emotional intimacy are fading as the bond gets deeper? First, stop making yourself the villain in their story. That does not mean stop reflecting. It means stop carrying all of it. Watch the pattern instead of only reacting to the pain. Ask yourself what really changes when closeness grows. Do they pull back after emotional conversations, after vulnerable moments, after feeling needed, after things start becoming more committed? When you see the timing, you see the truth. Second, create emotional safety without abandoning your boundaries. This is important. Do not beg for affection. Do not use sex to win reassurance. Do not shrink your feelings just to look easier to love. Speak clearly. Stay calm. Be honest about what you need, but do not try to rescue them from themselves. You cannot drag someone into openness while they are still committed to protection. You can invite. You can communicate. You can model secure behavior, but you cannot do their healing for them. And one more thing. Do not confuse waiting with wisdom. Time by itself does not heal this pattern. Awareness does. Responsibility does. Real effort does. Without that, you are not watching growth. You are watching repetition wearing a different outfit every few weeks. It also helps to understand that anxious and avoidant people often speak completely different emotional languages. For one person, closeness feels calming. For the other, too much closeness feels like suffocation. One partner reaches for connection to feel safe. The other reaches for space to feel safe. Neither person is evil. Neither person is always trying to hurt the other. But without emotional maturity, the relationship becomes a painful dance where each person's survival strategy triggers the other. The anxious partner sees distance and feels panic. The avoidant partner sees pursuit and feels pressure. The anxious partner asks for reassurance. The avoidant partner hears demand. The avoidant partner goes quiet. The anxious partner hears rejection. And because both people are acting from fear, the bond slowly becomes a place of tension instead of rest. This is why chemistry alone is never enough. Attraction can start a relationship, but it cannot stabilize one. Sexual intensity can make you feel chosen, but it cannot replace emotional safety. Longing can feel romantic, but longing without reciprocity becomes grief in slow motion. And if no one interrupts the pattern, intimacy keeps weakening until the relationship starts looking connected from the outside, but feels emotionally lonely on the inside. If this sounds familiar, keep listening, because the difference between struggle and unavailability is the part that changes your next move. Not every avoidant partner is the same, and this matters more than most people realize. Some are struggling, yes, but they are aware enough to admit it. They can say, I know I shut down. I know I go distant when things get intense. I do not fully understand it, but I want to. That kind of honesty matters. It means there is at least some openness to growth. They may still move slowly, they may still need support, reflection, even therapy, but they are not pretending nothing is happening. Then there is the partner who stays emotionally unavailable and protects that unavailability at all costs. They deny the pattern. They dismiss your pain. They minimize your needs. They twist your concerns into accusations. They act like asking for closeness is weakness, or they keep you stuck in endless confusion by saying just enough to stop you from leaving while changing nothing in reality. Learn this difference well. One person is struggling with fear and trying, even imperfectly, to face it. The other is using distance as a shield and expecting you to adapt around it forever. One may heal slowly. The other will keep draining you while calling your pain the problem. And that is why self-respect matters here. Not every difficult love story is a deep bond worth saving. Sometimes it is just a wound repeating itself in a familiar shape. Real change is possible, but let's be honest about what it usually takes. It takes self-awareness. It takes emotional responsibility. It takes a willingness to look at old pain instead of turning every moment of closeness into a threat. For some people, that means therapy. For others, it means a real wake-up call, a loss, a breakup, a moment where they can no longer deny the damage their defense creates. But change does not happen because you loved them perfectly. It does not happen because you stayed soft while they stayed shut down. It does not happen because you proved your loyalty again and again. You cannot love someone into security if they are still deeply invested in hiding from vulnerability. You can support growth. You can encourage reflection. You can make the relationship safer through calm, honesty, and consistency. But if they keep choosing distance over truth, silence over communication, and self-protection over mutual care, your love will not fix what they refuse to face. And this is where many good people lose years of their life. They confuse empathy with a calling. They think if they just understand the pain enough, they can finally unlock the person. But love is not supposed to feel like solving a locked room while your own needs slowly disappear in the dark. Now let's go deeper, because this is where the emotional damage really settles in. When sex fades and affection becomes inconsistent, many people do not just feel lonely. They start feeling ashamed. They compare themselves to who they were in the beginning of the relationship. They start watching how they look, how they speak, how often they initiate, how much they ask for, how little they can survive on without seeming demanding. They begin editing themselves in real time. They try to be easier, quieter, less emotional, less needy, more attractive, more chill, more whatever they think will stop the withdrawal. But this kind of self-editing can destroy your spirit slowly, because the message underneath it is dangerous. If I become less of a human being, maybe I can become easier to love. And that message is a lie. The answer to emotional unavailability is not making yourself smaller. The answer is telling the truth about what the relationship is actually giving you. Are you being met? Are your needs treated with care? Can hard conversations happen without emotional punishment? Can intimacy exist without you begging for scraps of connection? You need those questions, because sometimes the greatest shift is not getting them to understand you. It is finally understanding what your body has been trying to tell you all along, that you are not too much. You are just too alive for a love that keeps retreating from depth. And yes, sometimes the avoidant partner does come back closer after distance. Sometimes they become warm again. Sometimes the sexual energy returns for a while. The affection returns. The texts pick up. The softness comes back. And you feel relief rush through your whole body. But be careful here. Relief is not always repair. Temporary warmth is not always transformation. A few good days do not erase a repeating cycle. This is one of the biggest traps in this dynamic. The contrast between distance and closeness becomes so strong that even basic affection starts feeling extraordinary. A normal night of connection feels like proof that everything is finally changing. But what matters is not whether they can return for a moment. What matters is whether they can stay present when closeness deepens again. Can they remain open after conflict? Can they stay connected when emotions rise? Can they talk instead of disappearing? Can they remain affectionate without needing emotional distance first? That is the real test. Not the comeback. The consistency. Not the spark. The capacity. Because relationships do not survive on occasional magic. They survive on repeated safety. They survive on honesty that does not vanish when vulnerability enters the room. So if you keep seeing the same cycle with a different excuse each time, believe the pattern more than the promise. Patterns tell the truth long before words do. If you are wondering whether to stay, this is the lens that may help. Do not ask only, do they love me? Ask, can they love me in a way that feels safe, mutual, and real? Those are different questions. A person can care about you deeply and still be unable to build a healthy relationship with you. A person can miss you, want you, desire you, and still keep hurting you because they do not know how to stay open when intimacy becomes real. Love is not measured only by feeling. It is measured by capacity, by honesty, by repair, by emotional presence, by reciprocity. And if those things stay missing, then your job is not to become more patient while your heart keeps starving. Your job is to face reality with courage. Sometimes staying in a half-open relationship teaches your body to accept emotional crumbs as normal. It teaches you to call confusion chemistry and inconsistency depth. But deep love does not leave you constantly guessing where you stand. Deep love does not punish you for wanting closeness. Deep love does not make you prove your worth every time intimacy becomes uncomfortable. If you needed permission to stop over-explaining someone else's distance and start honoring your own emotional truth, let this be that moment, because protecting your heart is not cold, it is wise. So here is the truth I want to leave you with. When an avoidant partner starts losing interest in sex and intimacy as the relationship deepens, it is often not a mirror of your value. It is a mirror of their fear. Fear that love will consume them. Fear that being known will lead to pain. Fear that closeness will erase their independence. Fear that if they let themselves need too much, they will be hurt in ways they do not know how to survive. Those fears are real for them, but they are not your responsibility to carry forever. Your role is not to become their therapist, their emotional translator, their endless source of patience, while they keep one foot outside the relationship. Your role is to stay honest about your needs for touch, warmth, desire, openness, and mutual effort. Love should not feel like a maze you have to solve just to be chosen. It should not feel like earning back closeness every time the relationship gets deeper. It should feel mutual, alive, honest, safe enough for both people to be real. And if it does not, maybe the painful question is not whether you are asking for too much. Maybe the real question is whether you are asking the wrong person for the kind of love they still do not know how to give. If this hit home, sit with it, rewatch it, let it clear the fog, because once you see the pattern clearly, you stop chasing confusion and start choosing peace.